Slugfest between Yevgen Hítrov and Derek Findley. Don't go anywhere. Broadway Boxing will return in just a moment. Middleweight warfare. Corey Erdman alongside the Iceman John Scully and Dan Canobio. Yevgen Hítrov taking on boxing's toughest gatekeeper, Derek Findley. If you're looking for a fight to steal the show, this might be that one. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape, John, and you'll see right away what jumps out. It's the pro experience for Derek Findley.
Right. Now, people might look at his record and say he has 21 losses, but there's no doubt he's been in with deep competition in those 21 losses. You learn a whole lot, whether you win or lose, being in with that top level type of competition. So,
of the red corner, he wears gold and black. He weighed in at a ready and even 164 pounds. His professional record, an excellent one. 14 victories, only 1 defeat. He has 12 wins coming by way of knockout. Fighting out of Brooklyn, New York, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the 2012 Olympian, Yevgen, the Ukrainian Lion, Hítrov. Hítrov.
Bring it in, fellas. Let's go. Fellas, we're over the rules in the dressing room. I expect you to obey like you did at all times. Keep the bout clean. Touch them up. Touch them up. Let's go.
8 rounds in the middleweight division, and they promise to be action-packed. Yevgen Hítrov trying to bounce back after his first professional loss to Emmanuel Aleem earlier this year in what is a Fight of the Year contender. It happened on January 14th, and when you look at this one on paper, guys, I mean, this might be a Fight of the Year contender as well, because neither of these guys know how to take a backward step.
right, like I say, Findley has been in there with deep competition, and that means more to me than even an undefeated record if you haven't fought that level of competition. So this is definitely a tough fight for both guys.
A lot of boxing experience in the ring in total. We've talked about Derek Findley's professional record. He's fought basically anyone from 154 to light heavyweight, but Hítrov, depending on who you ask, was either 450 and 50 as an amateur or has somewhere over 500 amateur fights. What we do know is that he was a world amateur champion in 2011.
It's those Ukraine fighters that build up such a big amateur record there. It's one of the great things about the Eastern European countries out there. They do have a great amateur program.
Right. You see Hítrov's posture, and this is his demeanor. He wants to come forward, rocks Findley with a right hand. He is not an easy man to hurt, but Findley is in trouble here in the opening round.
He set Findley up nicely. He faked to the body a couple times and came right over the top and suckered him right into it. Beautiful technique.
Yeah, the way that Hítrov fights, so aggressive, throwing so many punches, you forget that this guy has a lot of tricks. This is a polished amateur boxer who is now a top-flight pro.
Right, for sure. You fight that many fights, you're going to be in deep with the elite in the world. You're going to have to fight all kinds of different styles. You're going to see different heights and weights and techniques. So, he's an experienced guy. It's like having 50 pro fights.
Findley's a guy who's made a career taking fights last minute, taking fights against absolutely anybody. He's managed by himself. He trains himself. Basically a lone wolf. Hasn't had the easiest of goes in the world of boxing, but he has been in the ring with almost anyone you can name, from Andre Ward to Andre Durrell, Andrew Fonfara, Curtis Stevens. I could go on and on. And he's given almost all of them a stern test.
And that last fight he had on June 23rd with Donovan George, that was an absolute war. Findley came out on top in that one.
That's what he's been known for, and Hítrov as well. We mentioned that war with Aleem. And trying to bounce back from that first professional loss, and always a tricky proposition for a fighter. Final 20 seconds here as Hyitrov starts to hammer away to the body.
You know, from a technical standpoint, I'll tell you, the Russian, he's doing very well, but he's actually so much taller. He would benefit if he would actually bend down and make himself a little bit shorter so he could get better leverage on his body shots. He's forced to throw arm punches because he's so tall. So I think they're going to have to make a little adjustment in the corner.
First round for Hyitrov. He's already wobbled Findley. See if he can build upon that as this fight progresses, as we take a look inside Hitrov's corner, and now to Findley's. In blue, he serves as his manager and his corner man. Let's take a look at the first round. Hyitrov landing the biggest blow of that opening round by far.
If I remember correctly, he's gonna come over the top. That's how he's gonna land the big shot. It's not happening here. He's against the ropes. He's covering up reasonably well, and there he goes, right over the top. Beautiful shot.
Interesting to see a fighter that doesn't have a corner man. So, you know, we've seen that a few times in boxing, but you know, that's usually not the case.
Right.
Could you do that, John?
I wouldn't want to do that.
Pump yourself up?
And let me tell you, the Russian has a great corner. He has Danny Jacobs' trainer, Andre Rozier, in there. He has Gary Stark Sr., so he's got some great experience behind him in the corner.
Round two begins. Hyitrov buzzed Findley in that opening round. We don't see that very often, although Findley was stopped in the past 12 months by Vyacheslav Shabransky. Shabransky, a full-blown light heavy. At middleweight, he is a tough cookie to crack.
And again, you know, for as much experience as he's had, the Russian, he does not bend his knees to my liking. I think he would be a much better fighter technically, and he would get much more leverage on his body shots if he would bend his knees and make himself a little bit shorter. Being the taller man isn't always a benefit.
That's interesting that you say that, because people almost always assume if you are taller, try and use that size, try and fight on the outside. But you're saying that Hyitrov, because of his instincts, he wants to fight on the inside. It's not helping him that he's not bending down.
Right. As long as that's your instincts and you're going to be inside, you have to do it right. Like, especially when you're talking the world-class level, if he wants to get up and fight the big boys, being upright is not going to work. I guarantee you, Andre Ward isn't going to let that go.
Whoa, hey, listen up.
What do we have here?
Yeah, referee warning Findley, I think, for pushing on the inside.
I got a question for you, John. When you're a shorter fighter in Findley, what do you got to do to get inside on the tall Krytov?
You know, he's got to get really low, and double and triple his jab. It seems like he's almost trying to fight on the outside a bit, and that's not going to work. You know, his right hand's not going to be able to reach. He's got to get inside, make it more of a physical fight. You want to try and wear the taller man out physically, push him around, back him up, get him to the ropes. Findley's keeping his distance too far, and he's got his chin way up in the air, which is a huge mistake as well.
Inside the final minute of round two. Findley, a guy who's been around the block. I mean, to me, guys, it looks like Findley has lost a step a little bit. This is a guy who has been so durable. Already we've seen him hurt. He just doesn't seem to have the same zip on his punches tonight that we've seen, even in recent bouts, as you said, Dan, against Donovan George.
He looks a little slow. Could be all those wars that you alluded to. As for Krytov, I want to see him throw some more punches. He averaged 98 punches per round in his loss to Aleem. He's clearly not throwing 98 punches per round early on.
It seems to me that Hyitrov kind of, tapping with some of these shots, looking for openings. Perhaps he feels, John, that after he hurt Findley in the first round, that he could do it again. Right.
Sometimes that's actually a negative. When you hurt a guy early like that, and then you just kind of figure you can hurt him at any time. And it could just be a one-off. He's got to stay with the course and keep working.
How you feel?
Findley with a late shot there. He makes sure to apologize so he doesn't get warned by the referee again. So a tight round there, but I think Hyitrov remains in control as we look back at round two.
Right. When I watch fights like this, I look at it this way. If I'm scoring it, I'm going to say who's doing what they are doing because they want to, and who's doing what they're doing because they have to. And the Russian is obviously doing what he wants to, whereas Findley is reacting, being forced to react. And I don't think you can give a guy a round for being forced to react.
Findley's corner, we mentioned. That's his wife, Marquita Blue, who's working his corner.
Interesting dynamic. He's got no trainer, but he also has his wife. She's not saying much, though, in the corner.
Derek Findley works as a security guard by day, then goes and trains himself by night. Takes any calls that come, including this one against Євген Хітров, the 2011 World Amateur Champion. Round 3 of this 8-round middleweight affair.
Now you see what's happening. I noticed a technical change. The Russian is actually bending and doubling his jab. I'm sure his cornermen told him to do that. I'm sure they noticed it. They're a sharp corner, and I think that it just shows you what he has behind him. He has positive behind him.
Well, Gary Stark was saying prior to the fight that this kid is a fighter. He wants to go in there and fight. But again, we mentioned the length of that amateur career that he had. Clearly, he has some tools in the toolbox. If you tell him to bend at the knees, if you tell him to do different things, he knows how to do this stuff.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I work in the gym sometimes with the light heavyweight Artur Beterbiev. He's from over there, came up on the same program, had over 300 amateur fights, world amateur champion, fought two Olympics, and he's very similar in his abilities. They've learned every style, and I help him with different things, and he catches on quickly. And that part of the world, they're producing superstar potential world champions repeatedly.
Looks like Hítrov tried to double up on that jab and come behind it with the right hand. That's what wobbled Findley in the first, trying to go back to the well. You mentioned the amateur squad that Hítrov came out of. That 2012 Ukrainian Olympic team also had Vasily Lomachenko, maybe the best fighter in the world, or at least one of them, and Alexander Usyk, the undisputed best cruiserweight in the world, and Євген Хітров. So that is an astonishing amateur team that they sent to the 2012 games.
Right. Oh, we're definitely seeing a positive shift. Now it's almost comical to me. Like you talk about being the world champion. I mean, now guys are really going to have to be the world champion. They're facing guys from thousands of miles away they never had to see before, and now they're seeing the best from over there. It's great for boxing.
Alexander Usyk picked up that big opening round win over Marco Huck in the Super Series there, cruiserweight division, on fire. Current boxing. Just to show you how much of a warrior Derek Findley is. I remember a fight back in 2014, Broadway boxing.
That's a big right hand. Sorry to interrupt, and Hítrov might have buzzed Findley again.
He suffered a giant hematoma on his head to Lamar Russ, a fight that he actually won too.
Really? Yeah, he's you can never, ever count guys like Findley out. Never. They're the most dangerous guys in the world sometimes.
The shades of Hasim Rahman.
Oh, really?
10 seconds here. Findley knows how to react. He was hurt, but he knows how to recover. And he'll make it out of this round once again.
Good round. Good round.
So it looks like a dominant performance for Hítrov, but guys, do you agree? Do you think it's 3-0 Hítrov at this point?
Me personally, I think it's 3-0, but it's a competitive 3 rounds to nothing. It's if we say he won every round of the fight, it's not reflective of the competitiveness of the fight.
Yeah, Findley's had a few moments, as you take a look at the replay here, some of the action here. He's had a few moments, he's landed a few nice hooks here, but he's just not thrown enough. You know, he's threw 35 punches per round in his losses over his last couple fights. He's got to throw more punches. He just wants to get back into this fight.
Saw some of that good work on the inside from Hítrov. And, you know, we were kind of criticizing Hítrov for not fully committing to his shots in the early going, but slowly we're seeing him open Findley up a little bit to some of those, you know, those tapping shots on the inside. He's starting to find some lanes with uppercuts.
Right, he's opening up, you know, he's finding his range, and that's the beautiful thing about, longer professional fights. The longer it goes, you're going to see who the real professional is come out.
You saw a little bit of a veteran move there by Derek Findlay, coming out of his corner without the mouthpiece in. Buy some more time.
Well, was that a veteran move, or is that a product of only having one person in your corner?
It could be a little bit of both.
Could be a little bit of
both, Corey.
Hítrov starting to work behind his jab a little bit. There's that long right hand. He's had some success with that.
One mistake that Findlay makes, which is, to me, a glaring mistake. His chin is extremely high up in the air, especially when he punches. That's a very glaring novice-level mistake, and that's why he's getting caught with the right hand. I'm sure his opponent sees it. If he's going to continue at this level, he's got to keep his chin down. He's going to be running into big trouble.
Well, he caught Hítrov with a sweeping right hand there a moment ago. But you're right, and you know what? That makes it all the more remarkable that Findlay has been as durable as he has throughout his career because, you know, frankly, there are technical flaws. He's a self-trained fighter. He does make mistakes, but he's a tough guy, and no one has an easy night against Derek Findlay.
You got to respect the man who's willing to take a fight on a week's notice, willing to fight anybody. He talked about his resume. And from Krychov, I want to see him, you know, use that jab or use that length. You talked about him leaving his chin open. Is that something he can correct if he bends down a little more like you've been talking about?
Well, I mean, Findlay's the one who's really leaving his chin open. He's got his chin way up in the air, and that's a detriment to not having an everyday trainer with eyes on you. You cannot do it yourself. Anyone who thinks they can train themselves is fooling themselves, because there are simply things that a trainer sees that you cannot possibly see, and they need to fix it, and he doesn't have anyone that apparently to fix it.
You can see Hítrov just hunting to the body. He's starting to commit to some of those body shots now. This is the kind of fight that Findlay wants. This is what he's used to. It's really all either guy knows as a professional. That's why we were so excited for this particular fight. On paper, it just didn't seem like there was any way that this one could be boring.
Right, you have the stacked amateur career of Hítrov, and you got Derek Findlay, who will fight anybody. So on paper, it's a great fight, and it's playing out right here.
Final 20 seconds of round 4 as the action continues to build. Hítrov trying to break down Derek Findlay, a seemingly impenetrable gatekeeper, as we enter the second half of this middleweight contest.
Stop picking it up now. There you go. Just breaking down. Start giving me the pressure a little more. Got it? How you feel?
Take a look at Hítrov's corner. Hítrov did some nice work in this round. There was that straight right hand he's been trying to set up all night.
It's a beautiful shot. He's finding it. You know, I think, but believe it or not, I think, now you see there, that was a great, you see how Findlay caught the shot. That's an old school, very beautiful move. That's the kind of stuff that old veterans like him can teach other undefeated fighters. Like, the Russian is going to learn more from Findlay tonight than Findlay's going to learn. I guarantee you that.
There's not a lot that Findlay hasn't seen as a professional, as we've documented here. As we enter round 5, second half of this middleweight contest. Євген Хітров trying to bounce back after his first professional loss to Emmanuel Aleem, a Fight of the Year contender in January of 2017. And John, you pointed out what Findlay was doing defensively, kind of reaching across with that right hand. Is there any way that Hítrov can kind of capitalize on that? Would you maybe jab into the hand and then try and come back with the left hook?
Right. Well, what you want to do is, you know, anytime you do anything like that, a slick move and maneuver your hand, you're leaving something open. So I would try to throw the right hand to get him to try and catch it, and then come behind it with a very fast left hook while he leaves that right side of his face open.
Findlay starting to fire back. And that may be where the openings come for Hítrov. We expected a war in this contest, but Hítrov might find his opportunities. The more action we start to see here, the more punches Findlay starts to throw.
Looks like both fighters were talking to each other a little bit in the clinch there.
I think Findley wanted an amicable break. He's a nice guy, but Hítrov wasn't willing to comply. Dan, you mentioned the punch output of Євген Хітров, especially in that fight against Emmanuel Alim. Just what do those numbers mean? For a middleweight to be averaging almost 100 punches per round, where does that put him in the sport?
It's an astronomical number of punches for a guy in the middleweight division. We see two great middleweights, Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin. They don't even throw that amount of punches. So he's a pressure fighter. As for Findley, he only throws about 35 to 40 punches per round. So it's a little bit of a style clash in terms of output. But, you know, Krychov, he's a beast.
And I think, John, we're starting to see in Hítrov, we see that punch count starting to build here in the 5th round, and that typically is what happens with pressure fighters. They take a little while to start, but once they get going, that motor keeps running.
Well, I equate it to rolling a bowling ball down a hill. It just gets faster and faster and faster, and once it gets going, you can't stop it. And I also noticed that he's starting to take little steps. See, he just did it again. He did it again. He started to take steps on the inside. He's trying to set up shots that Findley doesn't see. There, he did it again. Kind of shades of Lomachenko there. People might not notice it just with the naked eye, but it's a very slick move.
One thing I like to do when I watch a young fighter is look at his feet. And you talk about him stepping back. And you watch Lomachenko, if you ever went back and watched one of his fights, and just take a look at his footwork. It's so impressive. And I think that's a Ukrainian thing, because they just churn out great fighters with great footwork.
Hítrov starting to pour it on here. Findley not in any danger, but Hítrov just chipping away, continuing to throw more and more leather. Excellent round for Євген Хітров, maybe the best of the fight.
He's really starting to find his range. I think things are going to start looking up for him from this point on.
He might have wanted to take it into deep waters here. He's only had 15 career fights fighting a gatekeeper like Derek Findley. Maybe the game plan was, like you said, to take a look at the replays here of Krychov going to work. Maybe the game plan for him was to, feel him out in the first couple rounds, bring the pressure up, like you alluded to, Corey, and we'll see what happens here in the second half of the fight.
Excellent right hand from Hítrov at the end of that exchange. So he's starting to find holes in Findley's defense, and we know that Findley, for all the wars that he's in, he still knows how to survive when he needs to. Can't make a living in boxing the way that Derek Findley does if you don't know how to survive and you don't know how to go rounds. He's teaching the young pro, Євген Хітров, a lesson in professional boxing here tonight, one way or another.
Listen,
round 6 begins.
Every fight needs a B-side. You gotta respect the B-side fighters. They don't get enough shine. A guy like Derek Findley, who was the ultimate warrior, just step into the ring at any time.
Good right hand from Hítrov right over the top. Looked like it might have wobbled Findley for a moment, but you know what, guys? Every time you think that Findley is hurt, he seems to just shake it off and starts to march forward.
Well, I'm going to tell you, a guy like Findley, being in with that upper echelon type of opponent on a regular basis, you learn subtle little moves, how to get yourself out of trouble, how to react to trouble, how to react to stress in certain situations. So he's doing little things in there that are very, invisible to the naked eye almost. But I guarantee you the Russian sees it and appreciates it.
Well, and every generation has their guy like Derek Findley, who you look up and down his resume and they fought absolutely everybody, whether it's Harold Brazier or Ralph Tiger Jones. Every division, every generation has one. And this is ours. Derek Findley is our guy who's tested basically everybody from 54 all the way up to 175.
Darnell Boone. You can't leave Darnell out.
Good shot there from Hítrov.
And back in the day, you had a guy by the name of Freddie Pendleton who turned it around and actually used that experience to win a world championship, which was, unheard of at that level.
Good shots there from Findley as he starts to fire back.
Findley's coming on here. He's having a good round.
Yeah, Findley is definitely not in survival mode by any means. Firing back now through punch combination. Nothing Derek Findley does is pretty, but you can see he's a physical specimen. And if Findley hits you flush, when he hits you, it's definitely going to hurt. Good shot from Hietrov, right over the top. That's one flaw that Findley does have, is that every time he leans to his right, puts the hand across the face, he is leaving an opening clean for Hietrov just to come over the top of the right hand.
Yeah, but he's actually getting confident. This is probably the most confident he's looked in the entire fight. We're seeing it right now.
I think if you're looking for rounds to give to Derek Findley, this would be the one. It's certainly the best that he's looked in any of the rounds thus far. A couple shots land here for Findley.
It's a great learning experience for Hietrov. You want to go rounds. You want to get every fight. You want to get in there. You want to learn something. Derek Findley is a perfect opponent for him.
Big right hand from Hietrov. He thinks he might have Findley hurt. Unleashes a 5-punch combination. And the bell sounds as Hietrov lands another left hook.
Leaving him here too long.
Good way to end that round for Hietrov. Just as we were saying, hey, maybe you could score this for Findley. Hietrov might have stolen that one right back.
It's that amateur experience. It's that amateur pedigree, John Scully. Talk about his career. What's the perfect amount of amateur fights that a fighter should have?
Well, on the one hand, you could say 50 or 60, give or take. But the issue is the level of competition. This guy, no doubt, he was in with those Eastern Bloc countries. He was in very deep in his amount of fights.
Let's take a look at how that round ended here. Some of the work from Hietrov. A couple good shots over the top, comes back with that jab, and that was the big right hand at the end of the round. And again, it could come back from Findley. No matter what Hietrov throws at him, Findley definitely not folding up here. Round 7, scheduled for 8.
I know, John, you said you would never allow yourself not to have a trainer. What's going through the mind of Derek Findley when he's in that corner? He knows he's not winning this fight. What is he possibly thinking of? Put yourself in his shoes. What would you tell yourself?
He's probably got his own way of thinking that is so foreign to everybody else. Fighters in his position on their own. They develop their own way of thinking, their own crazy mindset, and what works for them, and what he thinks works for him. And oftentimes you're not going to change his mind. If a trainer came in now, I've done it a few times with guys like him, you try to train them later on, it does not work because they're so set in their ways, for good or bad, they're not going for it.
Well, and that's what makes Findley marketable. That's why he continues to get these opportunities. Look what's unfolding right now. This two-way action right in the middle of the ring, trading with a heavy hitter like Євген Хітров.
It's a tough way to make a living, but there surely is always work for B-side fighters as tough as Derek Findley.
And not just that, I'll bet you anything he's been in training camps as a sparring partner, making good money with some of the best fighters in the world. He is the perfect sparring partner for a world champion to bring into camp with him.
Hietrov trying to come over to the top of the right hand once again, digs to the body. That was a good left hook. That looked like it might have stunned Findley. Hietrov digging away, trying to let his hands go.
Lou DiBella has just joined us in the booth. First thing he said to me when he walked in here is that Findley's pro, and something we've been talking about all night. As much as we can praise Hietrov, we also have to give some credit to Derek Findley for standing there and taking some big punishment tonight.
He's the type of fighter that promoters love. I'm sure you could have called Derek Findley today, and he would have taken this fight. That's how he makes a living. Hietrov making that living difficult for him right now. He has him pinned in the corner, trying to dig downstairs with the left hook. Short little shots on the inside, couple uppercuts from Hietrov.
Going to the body very nicely too, John.
Well, I was just about to say, he's adjusted his body weight. He's getting leverage. Like I said earlier, he needs to get better leverage, and he's done that. And that's made a big difference for him. You can see he's starting to bend a little bit more. He's not 100% at it, but he's much better than he was in the first couple rounds.
I'm impressed with the hand speed of Hietrov on the inside, too. You don't always see it, but they're these short little 3-punch combinations upstairs that land here and there from Hietrov.
doing. Like I said, you can see the steps there. Very tricky, very slick.
Might have stunned Findlay right at the end of that round. Good sequence for Hyitrov. We're set to enter the 8th and final round. One last breather for Hyitrov and for Findlay.
Hitrov's doing something that I love when fighters do, and it's something that Sugar Ray Leonard did in his great fight with Marvin Hagler. It's flurrying in the last 10, 15 seconds of the round. Get the judge's attention there as we take a look at the replay. Great work done there by Hyitrov.
Some excellent work here. Tries to come over top with the right hook, but Findlay banging away to the body. He's still replying.
You know, a lot of times those guys, they not even the fans, they get the fans behind them by doing that final round shoe shine. When Sugar Ray did it to Hagler, the fans went berserk. They went crazy for it. And no doubt influenced the judges to a certain degree.
Judges are human.
Yeah, whatever works.
Well, this one came as advertised. It has been all action for 7 rounds. Now the 8th and final round. Євген Хітров and Derek Findlay. Corey Erdman, the Iceman John Scully. Dan Canobio here ringside with you at Foxwoods Resort Casino.
I'm expecting the Lion to throw probably his highest punch output of the fight in this round. I'm expecting with his adrenaline up and he knows it's the last round, I'm thinking he's going to work hard this round.
He threw 98 punches per round versus Alim, which is an astronomical number. The middleweight average is only 60.
Here comes Findlay. He has Hyitrov backed into a corner. Now Hyitrov counters with a right hand. Takes the momentum back. If Hyitrov was looking for an easy night to get back into the win column after his first professional loss, he certainly did not find it here tonight.
And you know what? This is better for him, though. As a professional boxer, this is much better than a first-round knockout. Much better.
It's that mentality that the Ukrainian fighters have. They don't want to take any fights off. Lomachenko wants to fight the best. Looks like he's going to be fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux now in December. That's going to be a great fight.
I heard they made it official today.
I did see that on Twitter.
Hyitrov backing up Findlay. He belts him with a right hand. John, as you pointed out, Findlay with that defense, with the right hand just across the face, he's catching just enough of these right hands to not be knocked out every time.
Right. You know, he moves his head just a little bit, you know, just perfectly to block shots. He rolls with shots, and you learn that by fighting tough opposition and by sparring with tough opposition. He's a well-schooled fighter. He's going to give you problems, and he may not get credit for it visually, but I guarantee you his opponent will say it. If you ask him, he'll say this guy can fight.
Hyitrov just pouring it on right now. Findlay looking like he's struggling to keep up with this work rate.
Hyitrov, like you made a great prediction there, John. You said he might see his punch output, his fight high. I think we have it here in the 8th and final round. Impressive work by Hyitrov.
Right, he's working. He knows it's the end of the round. His last chance for a knockout. He's going to let it all hang out. Oftentimes, the last round of a close fight are the best rounds.
Hyitrov just chucking leather here in the 8th and final round. His hands have not stopped moving once. And this is after 7 rounds of give and take action. This is why Hyitrov is so exciting. Final 5 seconds of this contest.
Look at Derek Findlay just slugging away right to the last bell.
Tremendous stuff from Hyitrov and Findlay. It was the middleweight war that we predicted. Hyitrov and Findlay toe-to-toe for 8 rounds. We'll be back with the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 8 rounds of action, we go to the judges' score totals. Eddie Scunzio and John McKay both scored this bout 80-72. Dick Flaherty scored this contest 79-73. All 3 for your winner by unanimous decision, Євген, the Ukrainian Lion, Hітров.
So Yevgen Hítrov picks up his 15th professional victory. The judges did find one round to give to Derek Findley, but John, as you were saying throughout the fight, that's not indicative of how entertaining this fight was and how competitive it was at times.
Right. You know, it's a shame for guys like him sometimes, because when people read the result without seeing the fight and they see the wide scorecard, they believe the guy got whitewashed, and that's not the case here. You know, he put up a good effort. He made people proud of him.
Stern test for Yevgen Hítrov in his first fight back after a Fight of the Year contender with Emmanuel Alim. Hítrov picks up his 15th professional victory.